Welcome to the Bullet Point Bulletins weekly wrap-up show. I'm Bruce Burke. I am here with my friend and co-host Tedd Huff of Fintech Confidential, who happens also to be the sponsor of today's show. Bullet Point Bulletins, we're currently looking for some, we have some limited sponsorship opportunities for our daily episodes, and we're also seeking supporters for some more long-form, hyper-focused episodes that we're going to be planning. If you like information on either of these opportunities, just reach out to me on the social media. My handle on YouTube is @BruceBurke. Now I'll send it over to Tedd. Can you please tell us today, Tedd, tell the audience what we're going to be discussing today?
Hey, Bruce. Thanks for the introduction. See, I was just going to mention I'm a little bit under the weather, but the show must go on. So we're going to be covering about 5 different topics this week. First, we're going to talk about the researchers leaking a potential Twitter crypto coin, dispensaries getting the door slammed shut on them with their cashless ATMs. We'll also be talking about Tony Fadell, the father of the iPod designing a beautiful crypto wallet. We'll also talk about how Starbucks, what they've started seeing with their Polygon NFT rewards platform. And last but not least, we're going to talk about Walmart pursuing a buy now, pay later just a year after them canceling all of their layaway. So, Bruce, let's jump into the potential Twitter coin.
Okay. So there's not a whole lot in this story, but it was one of the most viewed stories of the week. So it's a good one to start off with. Apparently, there was some files seen somewhere in some source code of a image of a Twitter coin, just a graphic image, nothing physical. It's not a physical coin, just like none of the other ones are physical. This one girl tweeted it out along with some other images. And she's been a researcher. She's done some exposés on Twitter before and that sort of thing. And I want to say it's Jane Wong was her name. And then another guy also put out some images, and it seemed to show the Twitter interface with a place for some coins and a place for some tips.
Yeah, so I went ahead and pulled up these tweets that you're talking about. So Nima Awishi brought up these images here, the monetization, subscriptions, tips, and then when you look over here on this side here, it just shows that there's coins in there. But then earlier, the Twitter coin that came out is here down below. One of the things I think is interesting is I could see Twitter using a Twitter coin as utilitarian, as kind of a way to manage and to buy things, kind of like when you're using an in-game type thing where you buy the coins of the game in order to get power-ups and things like that. So I can kind of see that. It's what
Mark Thomas does with Zen Sports. It's the same thing that
exactly.
They're doing. It's a utility within the platform.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But that means to me, I don't see them not supporting the other coins, right? Because that's going to be a way you'll be able to convert them, which makes them possibly into an exchange, unless they use somebody like Zebra, like Stripe is using. But who knows? I mean, it's Elon, right? So who knows what he's going to actually do? But this is really promising to see that that these things are happening, and we know that he loves Doge. We know that he's a full supporter of crypto. He's not a Bitcoin maximalist, but he does have belief in blockchain and crypto.
Yes, and it's interesting also that there's a tips aspect of it. So that leads me to believe that there's going to be some kind of creator portal where you can tip a video artist or a creator, that sort of thing, kind of like an OnlyFans or a Patreon type of environment.
Yeah, and I think he kind of took some of that away from Clubhouse, right? So they have the audio only interfaces. They're getting ready. They launched in some cases live video within the Twitter Spaces as well. So I see this just kind of being in there, and it turns into like a YouTube, like a super fan, where you hit the button and you tip them for it. So I can see that happening, and this will be a way to kind of standardize everything and not have to worry about stuff.
Yeah, it seems to simplify it. Something I was concerned about. I don't know if the woman that tweeted the coin initially, the image of the coin, she deleted her own account or she had her account deleted. But nevertheless, as soon as she put out that image of that coin, it was gone. She was also on Instagram. That's where I found the image, was on Instagram. Mm-hmm. She had also put it up there. But her Twitter was immediately deleted, and almost immediately after posting the images. I thought that was different.
Hopefully she deleted herself and it wasn't the folks at Twitter. They've gone on the whole free speech now that Elon is there, but we shall see. So we've hit on that quite a bit. What's interesting is that now we go into an area that's kind of like a little bit of a gray area. And, with cannabis, it's been kind of interesting to watch how it's become legal in state after state after state after state, first for medical and then for recreational. But still today, you cannot accept a credit card for a cannabis purchase. And so what had happened is a group of individuals and banks had figured out ways to offer a cash advance type scenario, or as they called it, cashless ATM, and brought that in. Now that's a super dark gray area, and you could look at it as being part of the Safe Banking Act, but Visa, and because all these cards have a Visa or a MasterCard bug on them or logo, the card brands knew that it was going on. They said they didn't like it over a year ago. And I think really what they've been doing is they've been taking the entire last year to figure out what angle they could take it from to shut it down without getting caught up in federal lawsuits around shutting it down. And I think they finally found that spot.
And as far as like the retailer, the other method, if they're not accepting debit cards, credit cards, and you're not running them through a processor, you're talking about carrying a lot of cash in your location, mm-hmm. which leads to a lot of security issues. There's been a lot of robberies and that sort of thing. And yeah. I can understand why a retailer especially a retailer that's in a gray area like a dispensary, right? That's yeah. still federally illegal and still can be, federally rated. And that has happened, mm-hmm. is, now a gray area business that has a lot of, green cash laying around that, is very tempting to people to just come and, rob from them. And so, it seems like as long as this has gone on and as long as this has been, an issue, it seems like they would have hammered this out already. Why has this not been fixed yet?
Yeah, I think there's a number of angles to this. Most of the people in cannabis area have felt like we're right on the edge of it being federally legal for the last 3+ years. We've really felt like that's where it's at. And there have been a number of solutions out there, whether it be crypto wallets that have a fiat on ramp and a fiat off ramp. Whether it be ACH type transactions. Dutchie's a good example. Dutchie has a Dutchie payment. They launched it last year, and it leverages traditional ACH rails with a financial institution that knows how to file all the paperwork federally and statewide. And I think that's been the biggest thing behind it, is that every state has different documentation, and the amount of documentation that is required for cannabis is ungodly. It is an intention. I believe it's been intentionally created to be super difficult so that nobody wants to do it. But what has happened is it spawned its own industry of compliance and paperwork softwares to really help through that process. There are other routes you could go as well. If you have a debit only card, that means it doesn't have a Visa or MasterCard logo on it. and it is PIN-based debit only card, you can use it because it isn't
as long as it doesn't go down the wrong rails, and as long as it doesn't have the wrong logo on it, it's good. But
Right.
Who issues that? I mean, who's issuing a card such as that?
Very few banks are issuing just straight up PIN-based debit cards anymore. It's mostly really, really small, rural type places, if they do it at all anymore. And with this being such a gray area, I can't see banks going, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and issue debit cards just for my cannabis customers. I don't see that happening.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to go and say that, you know, we're going to see these things happen. There's going to be a lot of friction. I think what you're going to start to see is these dispensaries pushing people to get on their loyalty programs even harder, that tie their bank account to it, and becomes more of a Starbucks thing, right?
Yeah.
A Starbucks card type scenario, but instead of using a credit card, it uses a bank. And the nice part is that we're in this era where RTP is about to just explode. And so you see real-time transaction payments happening. You have all of that. Now you have technology like MX, like Plaid, like Finicity, that if the consumer gives you access, you can do real-time lookups into their bank account to see if they actually have the funds. So the technology is making it so that we can start to do bank transfers, not only in real time, but validate them without having to worry whether or not you're going to get held, you know, left with an empty bag. And I think that you're going to start to see a lot of that happening. And that's just kind of where I'm looking at it from.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot more to come in this. It seems like now that there's been a federal decriminalization, at least of it, you know, that seems to be a step in the right direction. But it's still, like you said, it's state to state. It's even jurisdiction to jurisdiction. It even seems like, right? And I think there needs to be a lot of innovation in this. I don't know if it's going to happen within this next 2 years of this administration.
Yeah, and realistically, is that this will become a lot easier. My concern is, can the cannabis industry continue to hold out? Because if you look at cannabis stocks, they're down. If you look at cannabis dispensaries in the states that it first popped up, California, Oregon, Denver, they're starting to shrink in count and numbers. So there's fewer and fewer of them because it costs more and more to do business. That's my only concern, is that are they trying to strangle and choke out all of these dispensaries to go, well, you know, it just wasn't a profitable business. And now we end up going into gray and black market all over again. And unless they take it from being a Schedule I narcotic, if they don't do that, then you're just going to see a handful of mega stores that can afford to do this. But you also see a ton of the black market and gray market kick in. But that's my thought process around that. Yep. But, you know, there's one of the stories that you brought up that got me really excited. I'd heard about the Ledger crypto wallet called Stacks a few weeks ago, and I saw a video of it, but it was kind of, you know, the dummy phones that they used to have at the cell stores that, like, the buttons didn't work and the screens just had like this static image on it. A
decal.
Yeah. That's really what I saw in this video. But then, you know, last week on the 9th, Ledger launched Stacks, and I am super stoked that Ledger brought in Tony, who's known as the father of the iPod, to design this, because it is, in my opinion, the first wallet, the first hardware wallet that doesn't have that techno geek intimidation factor. This one feels like the everyday person's wallet. That's just how I feel, and that's how, when I look at it.
Yeah,
it's really
it's
nice.
got a little bit of that Apple magic, if you will, right? It's a unique design. It's magnetic, where it even shows in some of the advertisements, some of the imagery I saw, where you have essentially a name on the spine of the book, if you want to call it that, right? So this one's NFTs. This one, there you go. Noah's Crypto, right? My Mint Bag, Family Backup, right? And it's these displays that are running down the spine of this book, right, are essentially that's e-ink, and also the image that you're seeing on the screen on the front. That's an e-ink display, which is a real low voltage, real low power draw display, and it displays in real time, and it's your interface, even though it really doesn't look like one when it's just sitting around. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is kind of neat that they've talked about being able to use your NFTs as a way to put them in your favorite picture or what have you on the front side of it. They've got all sorts of really cool things that they've got here. But again, I mean, Tony outdid himself yet again, man. This is just unreal. And
well, this guy has a series of wins. One being the guy who pretty much designed. He obviously he's not the only guy. You know, Apple always holds up the one guy in the front, right? But he's not the only person that designed the iPod, but he was a big part of it and led the team and was actually brought on as a consultant to help build the thing. He wasn't actually an employee of Apple when he was brought in. And he had a really big win after he left Apple. He went on to form Nest Labs, which, started with the Wi-Fi thermostat, essentially, right? And was acquired by Google. They paid him $3.2 billion for Nest Labs. I mean, this guy is no slouch, you know?
Yeah, he's done a lot of really cool things. And I'm super excited to see that they've brought something that is a simple interface that looks really good to the market. I've always been a huge fan of Ledger and the way that they've approached the market. There are so many things that Ledger is doing today. You'll continue to see them grow and do a lot more things. Hopefully I get to share, on FinTech Confidential, hopefully I get to share some of the stuff that Ledger's doing here really shortly. I get the opportunity to work with them on a couple projects, but it's going to be exciting to be able to share some of that stuff. What other thoughts are you
They seem to be a company that's taken a little bit of a different approach to the whole thing. It's not only Tony that they brought on, but this Ian, that's the I forget his title, but experience, head of experience, chief of experience, something like that.
The chief experience officer.
He's been at several other organizations that were very high profile before Ledger. And so what it seems like what Ledger is doing is bringing on people that have decades of experience in their different channels. And it seems like they're bringing people that really can kind of iconically represent their brand, kind of like Tony's like their Joni Ive, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that's important is that they are doing partnerships as well. And they take that same calculated, at least it appears that they take the same calculated approach towards the partnerships that they're working with to deliver on high quality partnerships. At least some of the things that I've seen, they're not rushing into anything. They're not making claims about anything. We are being very thoughtful and methodical about this. We don't want to be the first out there, but we want to have the best available experience.
And very much the Apple approach to doing things. We're not the first to market, but when we do come to market with it, we might come in 2 or 3 years after, and everybody might think we're the latest to the market. But when we do bring it, we bring a little bit of something different, and we're bringing a little bit of magic that nobody else is bringing. And the experience is well thought out, so the customer will bring more customers just through that experience.
Well, I can already see that stacks becoming the Kleenex of the Kleenex.
You think
of hardware
they're going to
wallets.
have that much influence on the industry, huh?
I think so. I mean, I did a big comparison on a number of wallets, hardware wallets that are out there, and this one is so different, and it is so consumer friendly. And we've been looking and waiting and trying to figure out who's going to make it easy for a consumer, who's going to make it easy enough that my parents or others can just jump on and be able to handle it. And I see this stacks as being that first step. I haven't seen anything.
The interface seemed very simplified. I really like that. A lot of the stuff, me, I've been the contrarian all the way down the line, but a lot of the stuff I've been seeing lately seems to be a lot more engaging, because it seems that now that, we've gone through what we just went through, the apocalypse, right? It seems like a lot of the companies are now more concerned with the user experience and the user themselves. Not so much the crypto companies themselves, but the industry surrounding it and the landscape surrounding it,
Yeah, a lot of that, I think, and it is mentioned in one of the articles. Actually, I think it was the Wired article. Here, let me share that real quick. They made a mention here that I like, and it's a different take on what I've been saying. It's that not your keys, not your crypto is what I've been saying. But, I like this section down here where it's crypto's a new money. Security is a human right. Welcome to the new era of financial freedom. Like that says it, right? You're making it easy to use, you're securing it, and you're giving freedom to move about the cabin, right? And I think that's the biggest piece that really hit me hard.
Yeah, it's funny that you say this is it, because this Ian that I was talking about, and I forget his last name, I think he's mentioned in the article there. There's a picture of all of them at the end of that Wired article at the very bottom of it. But he was saying this is the we've been waiting for a iPod version of the wallet. Here's Ian in the middle with the sweater with the design there on it. We've been waiting for an iPod, and here it is, right? The iPod of crypto wallets, right? And this is it, right? And I really think they're onto something. They're all here in London. They're at the headquarters, I think, or one of the headquarters of maybe France. I thought it was London, though. But you see the experience in the people that they're all bringing together to create this thing. This is essentially like they're approaching it very Apple-like.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be to their success piece of it. And Starbucks has kind of taken the same approach with their ODYSSEY platform too, right? They went to Polygon and decided they were going to leverage that platform, which is very well known, very well established. It's on the Ethereum. It's a side chain of Ethereum. And they built their rewards platform on top of that, which I think is really interesting because, I'm a Starbucks guy. So, I go in and get my cups and such. And like hell, even right now, I'm playing the Starbucks for life, where every day I go in and I shake the little snow globe, right? and if by shaking the snow globe I start to get NFTs or I get something else, and it'd be really cool to like. I like the idea of Starbucks ODYSSEY being able to give me rewards other than just free drinks, right? Because free drinks are
the
great.
Free drinks doesn't really separate them much. They were the first mobile payment company, really, that really got real traction with mobile payments on a mobile phone, right? I mean, they were the first company to fill their coffeers with deposits for people waiting to buy coffee, and that goes all the way back at the first social mobile payments. We had, what was his name? The guy that had posted his Starbucks, thing and everybody could use it. I don't remember his name. Gosh, that was a long time ago, but, he posted his QR code and everybody could use it, and they were doing a pay it forward and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, now Starbucks once again has leapt out there into Web3, before everybody else. They're still ahead of the pack. They're one of the first to do this, and I think they're going to be really successful in this.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they're not trying to build it from scratch, right? A lot of companies try and build it from scratch. Yeah.
They're expanding on their existing platform. One thing I found that interesting was they really are not calling it the metaverse. The ODYSSEY is really about their journey as a company, right? And milestones, and that's what you're collecting. I found it interesting that in the stuff coming from the corporation, they were talking about they didn't mention really selling your NFTs. They said you could buy NFTs. Right? They're not trying to put it up there as like an exchange. They're not trying to, even though it's on an exchange, they're not trying to metaverse it, and they're not trying to exchange it. They're not trying to say those words. They're trying to make it more like Disney collectible pins, that sort of a thing, right? It's an NFT. It's a collector's item. It's something you'll want to collect and trade and, share with your friends and have your collection and keep them forever and that sort of thing. I see it more as that than I see it as a cash grab kind of a thing. And on the sale and trade of the I guess when you're buying a NFT from Starbucks, the proceeds of that, they're going to donate to charity or a portion of it, I said. So I find that this is a little bit different than all the other stuff that we've seen out there.
Yeah, the idea of doing limited edition NFTs that it goes to charitable causes, that's a big difference. They are talking about buying and selling, but they also mentioned trading. It's just another level of engagement that is going to help build the brand.
And they're talking about as you collect and get different stars and get different levels and get different rewards and get NFTs and all that sort of thing, that essentially you'll be able to, some of them will result in online classes that you can go to learn how to make different drinks, go into their different, apparently there's a whole line of, I've never been to one, but there's a whole line of high-end locations that Starbucks has around the globe, the roasteries that are really unique places, and there's going to be some curated visits to those, and then to their coffee plantation down in Colombia, I believe, their
Costa
coffee
Rica
farm, they called it. Costa Rica. Okay. Costa Rica.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to go to one of the Reserve cafes in Chicago a couple weeks ago on Michigan Avenue. It's a 2 or 3 story coffee place on the corner of Michigan Avenue, and I can't think of the other street off the top of my head, but it's an amazing experience. They roast sunbeans there. They have all of the specialty coffees there. So any of their specialty coffees from around the world are there. So it's a really neat experience. But there's one thing that I want to point out is that, no one's really said this yet. But if you look at Starbucks, it used to be Starbucks Coffee Company. What do we not see anymore? It no longer says Coffee Company. It just says Starbucks. So I see them pulling on the Apple computers, just becoming Apple and going beyond coffee, going beyond that. And I think this is that direction that they're really heading in. It's
kind of turned into a lifestyle brand. For me, it's a place that you stop in when you're in the center of town. You know what I mean? When you're out shopping or you're out seeing and you're, a Saturday afternoon kind of a thing, not when you're grocery shopping or you're, getting supplies for work or, reams of paper or something like that. But when you're out and about and it's a Saturday afternoon and you're walking the dog and you're, just philandering around, that's Starbucks is a destination at those places. And
oh my gosh, your perspective is so different than mine. Because
really?
for me, Starbucks is the place that I go to during those days where it's hectic. When I'm having to run to the grocery store to get a bunch of things, or when I'm going out, like if I got a bunch of things going on, Starbucks is the place that I can stop, take a break, disconnect from all the busyness, grab myself a cup of coffee, and then take that first sip. And then from there, the rest of the day or the rest of what I'm working on doesn't seem better. As bad. No, seriously.
Yeah, no, you're right. Usually, I stop at the Starbucks. I go see a barber on Clearwater Beach, and I've been getting my hair cut there forever. And there's a Starbucks close by, and that's usually the first thing I do right after I go get my hair cut. I go get a Starbucks, and I'm like, life is good, man. I'm feeling good. I just got a fresh haircut. I got a fresh, and I usually get like a green tea frappuccino that gives me energy and all that sort of thing, right? So, I really think that they took the coffee company thing out about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, out of the logo.
Yeah.
But they've gone down the path with music. They've gone down the path with other drinks and refreshments. There's some food now,
So you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh. You ready for this? Can you see that?
A little refresh. Oh, there you go. Yeah. What does that say? I can't see that.
It says Stanley plus Starbucks. So it's a Stanley thermos that I got from Starbucks. So
it's a brand partnership, a collab, so to speak. They mentioned in this press release about the Odyssey that a lot of the NFTs were going to be designed with partnerships, and there was going to be a lot of partnerships. The short film about the Odyssey program pretty much starts off talking about their partnerships and how long their brand has had partnerships with different companies and that sort of thing. So,
that's what made me, when I saw this, that's what made me think of that, right? Is that they do have their own stuff, but when they partner with companies, it's like well-established companies that have brand recognition in a positive manner, that have stood the test of time. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I thought about that.
Yeah, it's interesting that brands like Ledger, right? Apple, Starbucks, when they set up their posture, when they set up their posture from the beginning as to how they're going to conduct themselves in the business world and the way that they're going to go about things and the kind of companies that they're going to interact with and the way that they're going to do business, when they set that professional tone and they set themselves at that professional level, right, that high level for a consumer, right, it seems like the consumers actually react to that and say, this company is different. This company is better than, the other company that's selling the beans down the road,
Yeah. And it really just targets their demographic, right? Like one of the things that's interesting is that here in Arizona, Dutch Bros Coffee Company is really, really huge. Huge. I mean, you'll wait in line for an hour to get a coffee. And actually, let me reword this. Their number one drink is not a coffee. It's an energy drink that they make there, like a Red Bull or something like that. So, so you can see the different demographics that happen. And I think that's a big testament to what you were just saying, is that they defined who their customer was, and they've just stayed laser focused on it. They haven't tried to go everywhere else. And really looking at the way that they're handling Odyssey is really helping bring that customer into Web3 without it being intimidating. And that's kind of how I see that.
All of these things, everything that we've talked about practically so far today it seemed to make the word that we used with Stripe last week, that crypto on-ramp,
Yep.
That Web3 on-ramp. That's going to be very important moving forward. And companies like Starbucks that brought people into the idea of mobile payments, right? Many people learned about mobile payments through Starbucks, you know what I mean? That's, they're like, oh yeah, Starbucks, like, yeah, but, and then it was like, oh yeah, Uber, I'm paying, mobily Uber, right?
Well, Starbucks was also the one who popularized, or I should say mainstreamed, the use of barcode and QR codes for interacting. If you really
digital
look at
loyalty, they were one of the biggest advocate of digital loyalty and the biggest growth of digital loyalty in the business,
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm really excited to see what they do with that, and really to watch how all that happens. Our last story of the day.
I'm on the wait list. One more thing before we go. I put myself on the wait list for the Odyssey program. They're going to select another round of beta testers in January, and I put myself on the wait list. So I'm hopeful to get in there so I can give you guys a firsthand look at what it's like.
Well, and so speaking of that, I pre-ordered the Ledger stack. So.
Hey,
so
sorry you're feeling so bad today. I can tell
things.
you're really feeling bad because you're actually sitting down today rather than standing up like you usually are for the events.
But it's all right, man. We're working through this stuff. I mean, these are really cool things. I really enjoy it. The last one that we're going to hit on today is going to be Walmart canceling their layaway last year. And then now it was on December 9th. December 9th was a busy day, man. They announced that they were launching a buy now, pay later product. They didn't say when. So now we're going to go through this holiday season without a layaway financing type product, other than the Synchrony Financial stuff that they've got going on. But nothing for the lower end of the market. So I find that really interesting. The way they approached it, Bruce, I like, it is very interesting to me. And I know I keep using that word, but it's got me very curious to understand why they approached bringing on a buy now, pay later the way that they did. Do you want to walk us through like how they structured all that stuff? Because it's really interesting.
Well, it's a joint venture between Ribbit Capital, who prior to this I'd never heard of, but apparently are quite huge. And then it's so it's Walmart and Ribbit Capital together. And then they acquired two fintech firms, two different platforms. One is called One, all capitals, and the other one was called, what was it? Need. And then they installed a couple of CEOs to run the whole thing. They named the whole program One, and essentially they're calling it a fintech startup. It's not the same kind of startup that you and I kind of think of, but it is a startup. It's a new company that's being funded that's into fintech. And one of the first things this company did was offer checking accounts to Walmart employees. That's not a real sexy, hot thing, fintech, but apparently Walmart is one of the nation's largest provider of checking accounts in the U.S.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting. So Hazel bought Even and One, being funded by Walmart and Ribbit Capital. And then they combined the three companies together to call it One. Like, this is what I'm talking about. It's like I don't, and maybe there's something, maybe you have a technology, you have a great operator, and you have a great balance sheet between, if you took those three, I don't know. I tried to do some research on this, and they're all private companies, so you can't really get a lot of access to the info. And so really tried to dive into it, and it's been very very, very interesting to try and pull all this together.
Well, the two words I'm looking at and what you have on the screen here for those who are listening on the podcast, on the screen, it says Walmart's FinTech Hazel acquires Even and One to build finance. Here's the word, super app. And for those in the West here who are not familiar with super app, in the on the other side of the world, they have apps that they're logging into, and they stay in that app all day long, and they do everything in it. They get their cars, they pay their rent, they interact with their friends, they buy their groceries, they do everything through a single app. And I think that that's Walmart's push here. This is the first time I've seen that word in conjunction with this, but when you really look at all the different services that they're offering, this could be a super app.
Well, like you said, I mean, they've got banking. So if you look at the whole ecosystem around Walmart, right? You have banking, you have employment, you have insurance. Now we have the finance side of the house. They have a commercial banking license. They do distribution,
money orders,
money
everything.
or like. So all of that is kind of happening.
The Bluebird card, right? Everything. I was in a Walmart the other day, and where you used to go to kind of return your items and, get your credit and all that sort of thing is turned into more like a bank counter almost. It's a lot of it's centered around financial services, and they got a great big menu behind this counter of all the different services and capabilities, including like international money exchange and that sort of thing right there at Walmart. I was really taken aback by how many different financial services are right there.
Yeah, it's unreal the breadth at which that they've taken over the last few years.
Well, it said in the article, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
It did say in the article that they said it was going to be integrated throughout their physical and digital channels to service their 1.6 million U.S. associates. That's a lot of employment and hundreds of millions of weekly shoppers at Walmart. Hundreds of millions.
Yeah, so I'm going to pull that back up again.
Yeah.
So here's the part that Bruce just mentioned where it says the future. I'm just going to zoom in here. For those who are watching, zoom in so it's easier to read. The one app, 1.6 million associates and 100 million plus weekly shoppers. That's crazy, man.
Most companies could build their whole business just on 1.6 million associates.
Yep.
Many banks don't have 1.6 million credit checking account holders.
Right.
And would love to. And if Walmart can get 10% of that, if they can get 10% of their employees to open a bank account, and if they're giving them, essentially a debit card with their payroll on it, they've already done it, right? I mean, that's all they have to do is give them a debit card and say, here's your payroll, and it's on this debit card. And essentially they got them a checking account right there. I mean, that's what that is.
Yeah. And then if you go the next step, right, which is you get paid at the end of your shift onto that card. As soon as you check out, you clock out, you get paid for whatever you work that day.
I was surprised in watching the Walmart employees, how many of them, when it comes time for a break or when at the end of their shift or whatever, are going and buying things within the Walmart itself and buying food, buying drinks, taking a break, stopping at the Subway, getting something to eat, picking up some stuff before they go home, so those people are pretty much 8-hour-a-day shoppers. You know what I mean? When you're in a retail store and you're surrounded by merchandise all day long, all you're doing is wanting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean that's a good point that you mentioned. It's that ecosystem that they've built out, right? So they've built out that huge ecosystem inside of there, and as an employee, do you really need anything else? You've got the grocery, you got clothing, you've got the banking. The only thing that they haven't done is provided housing, if you really look at it.
Yeah, that's
when you go the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. they've got 2 out of the 3 there,
and it's for many of the associates that I watched. And I just sat there and had a drink and sat at the subway, which pretty much faces the self-serve registers. And you can just sit there and watch the commerce go down, which is quite amazing in itself, right? Just to sit there and watch, hundreds of thousands of dollars go through a self-service checkouts, one right after the other, with like 3 or 4 people manning the thing. It's a lifestyle for a lot of the associates there. It's not just clocking in, clocking out. Their friends are there. They're hanging there after work. They're, like I said, they're interacting with the store, and it's probably becomes their primary source of goods in their life.
Yeah.
And, that's new and interesting. And and you want to talk about, we've been talking about Ledger, and we've been talking about, Starbucks and their approach, and all these other companies and their approach. And that's that high level approach, right? For those consumers, and those consumers are not the people that we're talking about at Walmart. No. And those are not Starbucks customers. Those are, they have Starbucks in the Targets, not in the Walmarts, right?
Yep.
And it's interesting that
I don't think I've seen a coffee place or a way to get coffee inside of a Walmart before.
They do have it at the Subway. Not that I had one, but they do have it at the Subway. I was watching one of the workers get one the other day, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is where you can get a coffee here, right?" But it's a different approach, but it's kind of like that, the top of the pyramid, bottom of the pyramid kind of a thing, it's lonely at the top, it's crowded at the bottom, kind of an idea. I think, when you really look at all of this, is Walmart kind of preparing people with the services they're providing in the financial service realm? Are they kind of preparing their company, their people and their associates for Web3 also?
It's a good question. And all I'll say is that we'll have to see.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. It doesn't feel that way today, but that may just be because the way that we've looked at Web3, the way that we're seeing others doing it. And this may be just a slower, more methodical approach and a less blatant, look at me, I'm Web3.
But it does seem like they're meeting the needs of their consumers. And if those consumers are going to go to that metaverse, obviously they're seeing it, around them, right? They obviously with this building this fintech and building this one, they could, easily build in some Web3 solutions for it that are more geared to their customers. But like you said, it's something that we should wait and see. But it's interesting to look at. And here I am using your word, interesting, every other word now, to look at how they are approaching it differently than Starbucks, than everybody else.
No, man, I like how you brought everything together. We started with the Twitter coin that is, the beginning of kind of like the Web3 piece. It was really like the crypto, right? And then we went into the crackdown, which is around all of the regulatory things, which we've also seen in Web3. Then we dive into the wallet, which is bringing the physical world into a usable interface. Then we've got Starbucks jumping into the Web3 rewards platform. And now we're talking about Walmart building a quote unquote super app. It's what I'm noticing between all of these is it's all about building a community. And that's really what Web3 is about, is building a community of people all around the same things, giving them the safety and security that they're looking for. So yeah, I like the theme of how this last week turned out. So
it seems like there's a despite the apocalypse that happened and continues to happen, I'm not going to talk about all the news that's going on, but there's a million things happening out there with FTX and Binance and all those guys.
There's always going to be something exploding, though.
There always will be, but there seems to be some rallying. And there seems to be some new initiatives, and there seems to be some very positive initiatives, and so positive that you can kind of say, well, these are some established companies now that I know that are doing this stuff. And these are some companies that I trust and have a long-standing relationship with. And so I'm going to believe in where they're going rather than what I've been believing.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is funny is if any of these were Google talking about any of these things, I would say, okay, so they're just trying something because they'll end up shutting it down in the next year or two. But none of these things are coming from Google. None of them.
No, and I don't see a whole lot coming from Google about Web3 generally. I just have not seen a lot. I
think the biggest part is that they're supporting the infrastructure side of the house, but not a lot of products, right? So they're focused on infrastructure, not products. But that may be just them waiting to see what takes off before jumping into it. Because honestly, they've got a lot of reach.
They've got a lot of reach. They can, they've got a lot of money, right? There's plenty of money in the bank, they're not concerned about crypto. That's not going to hurt them, and the only thing that I've seen recently that as far as advances coming out of Google really is, they kind of redesigned the YouTube interface and made it a little more, malleable. It works a little better with iPhones and Apple devices now, but other than that, I haven't seen a whole lot of plague coming out of Google. I really haven't.
Well, it could be that sleeping giant that we start talking about here in the next few weeks, right? So
yeah. Stay tuned for something coming out from Google, folks. They're next.
Well, and this wraps up this week. Bruce, thanks again for having me on. Sorry, I was a little under the weather today, but I look forward to the next week. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to FinTech Confidential on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Just find us at FinTech Confidential. You can watch our latest episodes and listen to them on your favorite podcast player. If you want to be considered as a guest on FinTech Confidential, go ahead and go to guest.fintechconfidential.com and go ahead and apply. And as always, Bruce, thanks, man. And I'll let you close out the rest of this episode.
Okay. Like you, I wanted to say thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share. I'm Bruce Burke at Bruce Burke on YouTube here, and Bruce Q Burke on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. If again, we're looking for some additional sponsors to sponsor both the daily short form videos and the longer, more hyper focused videos that we're doing. One being this weekly wrap up, and then we're looking at doing some on various topics, AI, blockchain, et cetera, et cetera. We're also if you just need some short form video, please reach out to me individually. as always, I want to thank Ted for scraping through and coming in despite feeling under the weather. I know you just did a road trip and you're back and you're not feeling the best, and I really appreciate you showing up and suiting up and making it in for the episode today.
No, I appreciate it, Bruce. Well, have a great week, and look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Thanks, Ted. Have a great day. All the best.